Welcome to Intuitive Alchemy, where we recode your reality from the inside out. I'm your host, Sydney, trained intuitive, energetic alchemist, and certified hypnotherapist. And this podcast is here for the woman who is done playing small. Here, we go deep into energy, identity, universal law, source truths, and the neuroscience behind what actually creates lasting change. No fluff, no filters, just conversations that shift your frequency and call you back to the most powerful version of you, the one who knows it was always her and it can only be gotten from her. Let's get into it. Hello, and welcome back to Intuitive Alchemy, where we recode our reality from the inside out. I am back with part 2 of the episode that I started last week. Last week was my solo perspective of my journey going from extreme heartbreak to manifesting my dream relationship with my partner, Cory. And I promised you last week that he would be joining me in this episode today to just share the masculine perspective, share a little bit about his background and his story, how we met, like his perspective and story of how we met, and just kind of going from there, what happened after we met, how did he experience it, and then we tell the story of how we were just absolutely insane and decided to move across the country together after only being together for about a month, which is so wild now. Like thinking about it, I'm like, I can't believe we did that, but we both just knew that it was super, super aligned. And so we talk a lot about that later on in the episode. I'm just going to warn you, this is a long episode. So if you are down, like buckle up and just let this be a big, long story time. There may be some unnecessary detail. There may be, a little rambling, but hey, we were just sitting in our kitchen together, chatting and telling stories and talking about our story, which is of course one of our favorite stories to talk about. And so I hope that you enjoy it. I hope that it serves you. And like I say in the end of the episode, if this is something that you'd be interested in, like really doing some Q&As or just like some really intensive topics where you want to get both like the kind of grounded, spiritual, integrated masculine and feminine perspectives on relationships, dating, like anything in that space, communication, all of that, we would love to do some episodes like that if that would be something that would be valuable to you. So there is a link in the show notes that says you can text me with like topic suggestions or questions. So you can totally click on that and text me, or you can DM me on Instagram at Intuitively Sydney. Cory is not on Instagram. He's not on social media at all. But I will, of course, share with him, and then we can talk. So we would love it if that would serve you. And without further ado, we will just get right into it. Okay, now for the much anticipated conversation with my partner, Cory. He is here to tell his side of the story and his background and just share a little bit of how he experienced this whole thing. So here's Cory.
Hi guys, I'm Cory. Pleasure to be here today talking to you. A little bit about me. 36 years old. I was born and raised in Southern California. It wasn't until 2022 that I moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and ended up meeting Sydney. So a little bit about how I ended up in Oklahoma. Really after COVID in 2020, things kind of started to shift for me in a lot of different ways. I kind of was red pilled, if you will. I kind of woke up and started seeing what was around me. But ultimately, I wanted to get it out of California. I knew that. Just the politics, everything during COVID, and just the prices. I felt like it was time to go. So the opportunity came out to move to Tulsa. So at the time, I was actually engaged. We ended up being engaged for about 2 years, but about that time it was maybe a year. And we found a brand new builder in Tulsa, Oklahoma, or right outside Tulsa.
He was in Glenpool, if you're familiar, like if you're living in Tulsa and you are listening to this. So he was in Glenpool, kind of in the middle of literally nowhere.
Yeah, but that's kind of what I wanted. So it was a very rural area, maybe 20, 30 minutes outside of Tulsa. But it provided the opportunity to have a little bit of land and kind of be away from everything. And, if anything ever went down, I was going to be self-sustaining. So we bought a house out there in April of 2021 is when we actually agreed to buy it. And then it was a new build, so it wasn't done with construction until about December of that year. So ended up moving out there and found a job. So I've worked in restaurants for about 10 years or so, mostly as a chef. And I got a restaurant opportunity out there, so I had a job and I was good to go. So maybe about 5-6 months after living in Tulsa is when me and my ex agreed to go our separate ways. The relationship had essentially just run its course, and we were just going in two different directions. So this is when the fun begins. So she ended up moving out. She moved to Utah, and I ended up staying there. And my intention was to sell the house and then move back to California. And I think we split in June of that year, and about probably July or August, I put it on the market, and about the price that I had bought it for. And I thought it would sell right away and I'd be out of there. But that ended up not being the case. So, to make things even more fun, so when me and my ex had purchased the home, I ended up putting all of the down payment down, and she went ahead and furnished the home. That was the deal that we had. But when we split, she was moving and she needed all of her stuff. So she took everything.
Literally everything.
From pictures on the wall to the couch to cookware to the washer and dryer. So I essentially needed to start all over. And at the same time, I was left with a mortgage payment that I couldn't really afford. Now, she did contribute a little bit, which was nice, and she didn't have to do that. But it was still a mortgage payment that I couldn't really afford. It was meant for two people, not one. So I had a giant empty house, and it took a lot to just, refurnish it as best I could so I could live there comfortably. But at the same time, I anticipated the house selling very, very soon. So months went by and there was no action on the home. At that time, it was turning into fall. And my realtor essentially said, we're going to have to ride this out through winter and probably into spring before we see anything. Which was a little disheartening, but I was like, all right, well, this is what we got. So let's make the most of it. So all at the same time, going through heartbreak, it was tough. I was out there, and I only had made a handful of friends and I just had my coworkers, so it felt really lonely at times. And it was definitely a hard season and a really hard test. But it ultimately ended up paying off. So probably, when did we meet? 2024, right? Yeah. So it was probably maybe early 2024. I started getting on dating apps, Hinge mostly. I think I had signed up for a couple other ones, but I didn't really use them. Hinge kind of seemed to be the most user friendly, and yeah. So didn't know what I was doing. I'd never been on any kind of dating app before.
You never had? Oh, wow.
No.
He just usually meets people in the wild.
Well, yeah. I mean, I've worked in restaurants for a long time, and that's kind of how it goes. You meet.
You date people that you work with
You
in the
date people
restaurant
that you work
industry.
with.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
But in Tulsa, yeah, they're in the spot that I was at. Not really going to meet anybody there, which is fine. Probably a good thing. So ended up getting on Hinge, and immediately I was like, something's weird here. Like,
What do you mean? Like, talk more about what was weird.
well, first of all, there were almost zero attractive people.
Okay. Okay, we're not trying to be mean, but you had a certain thing that you were kind of like looking for, a certain maybe kind of person that you were looking for and who you would be attracted to, and you had certain standards and you weren't finding that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a dating, app or site, and you're kind of just going off the pictures, and there's a little information, but you're just kind of going off the pictures, and
Yeah.
if the pictures don't really resonate right away, then you're swiping the other direction.
Yeah. I think it's interesting, like, to hear, because obviously if you're a woman and you are interested in men, like, we only see that. So I only know, like, have my frame of reference for what my experience was on the apps. And so, like, obviously I would hear guys talk about their experience on the apps, and it's often like different from what the female experience, like, it kind of sucks on both ends, but like for different reasons.
Yeah.
And so it's just interesting to hear like that perspective. But anyway, keep going.
Yeah, so so I kind of figured out how the app worked, like you like somebody or something. So I maybe did that with a handful of people, and I didn't, like, there was no reaction, and I'm like, what's going on here? Like,
He's like, look at me.
well, I mean, yeah. Essentially, like, I think I put up some good photos and had some good info on there, and I just like I didn't understand why, like, I wasn't getting any traction. I'm like, all right. So after, I don't know how long it was, I get like a like from somebody, and it's this really pretty girl, and we start like going back and forth, and maybe for like a day or two there's a little conversation, and then I'm like, okay, like maybe there's hope here. And then she asks at some point, or this person asks at some point, essentially for me to download a crypto exchange and give her my information. And I was like, oh,
It's a bot.
that's a bummer. Yeah, so it's a bot or it's a catfish situation, but this person definitely isn't who they are saying they are. And immediately after the word crypto, I was like, boom, delete, report, whatever. Like, okay.
You delete the app, or you just deleted that person?
You can like block the person or something, and
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
But you stayed on the app, like you didn't delete it and then later.
I stayed on the app.
Okay.
So that ended up happening again with somebody. It was a little bit different circumstances, but the same kind of thing. And then from that point on, like my spidey sense was up. Like anytime, especially in that area, anytime if there's any attractive female, like I'm going to be very hesitant going forward. Um, so I had,
That sounds really bad,
but I
but
mean, it's true. And like you can Google like Hinge crypto or Hinge Bitcoin and like
yeah.
there's a whole,
Yeah.
it's a whole thing.
No, it happened to me too. Like once, well, maybe more than once, but once that I kind of noticed, I was chatting with a guy who, again, like super, super attractive, not someone who looked like he was really from like that part of the country. And he like he didn't even say anything like soliciting to me of like trying to get my information, but like we were chatting and the next morning I got an email from Hinge saying like someone that you matched with was reported for like financial fraud or like something
Yeah,
like
that
that, and I
same
was
thing
like,
happened to me.
oh
That happened
wow.
with one, maybe two other people. Um, so yeah, the whole Hinge experience just wasn't. I just felt kind of icky. I ended up matching with like a couple other people and talking to other people. I was stood up twice. We were supposed to meet, and I showed up, and this other person just didn't show
I
up.
didn't know that. You never told me
Yeah,
that.
that was twice. And then I ended up
Like two different people or the same person?
two different people. And then I ended up
Oh
uh,
my gosh.
matching a meeting with maybe one or two people um, that there was like good conversation and good connection. And then when we met, this person wasn't who they wasn't who their
Didn't match the
profile
photos.
yeah said they were. And yeah, so those didn't work out. So at that point, I was pretty much just kind of done with Hinge. I was like, like this is just making me feel kind of desperate. It's making me feel kind of bad. Like maybe we can just meet people like the old fashioned way. And I would go out at least once or twice a week to like a restaurant and like have dinner by myself and like meet somebody, but never ever happened. So then I was just kind of content, like, all right, let's just be single here and figure out, you know, what's next. Like I'm probably not going to be here that long anyways, because at some point the house is going to sell, and I'll be back in California, and that'll be that. So at the same time that was going on, there the restaurant where I work, they were opening a new location in Scottsdale, Arizona, and immediately when I heard that, I threw my hat in the ring. I was at a conference in Vegas and met with the CEO and a lot of the higher ups, and I was like, I'm like, as soon as this is open, like I want to go. And so that's what I did. There was a lot of signs. There was a lot of things pointing to Scottsdale, just kind of popping up all over the place. I would see it. I would see it everywhere. I would hear about it. And I'd never been to Scottsdale before. I didn't really know much about it other than it was near Phoenix. But that was kind of on the radar. Like maybe this is a possibility. So that was all kind of going on in the background. So, when I guess we can get to when
let's get to the more
enough background so we can get to where Sydney and I met. So at this point, I'm kind of done with Hinge, and I think I'm scrolling one day and I see her profile, and immediately I was like captured. Like she's really beautiful. Like her haircut really drew my attention. Her smile, and at the same time, I'm like, she's probably not a real person. Like that certainly doesn't fit the mold of Tulsa. Oklahoma for that matter. But let's see what happens. Like, I know what to look out for at this point. So
If she asks for my bank details,
yeah,
it's a no-go.
yeah. So I think she had mentioned in the last podcast kind of like the banter that we had. It was kind of like a lot of back and forth. What was it? Something about like, you're like, I hate when the plane lands and people immediately get up.
Yeah, so I actually, after I like gave my version of that on the last podcast, I was like, I know I screenshotted that. I have to go back and find it.
What a
And
weirdo.
sure enough,
It was like that. You're like, I hate when people don't return shopping carts at the market.
okay, so yeah, I'm gonna find it. You can keep talking.
So this banter went back and forth, and I'm like, all right, like this person's cool. Like she's really easy to talk to. I feel like she's a real person. Hopefully, like we can keep this going.
Okay, I found it.
Okay.
All right, so the prompt was, all I ask is that you, and then I said, have pre-check and bonus points if you have clear, like related to traveling. And then I said, and possibly even more importantly, you don't hop up out of your seat and occupy the aisle the second the plane stops. And you said, like, I know that's so like hyper specific, but I have traveled a lot, and that's just, again, one of my things that I hate so much. And you responded and said, preach, girl, those are the worst people on earth. And then I said, and you know they don't return their grocery cart either. And so we just like kept going back and forth with just like little pet peeves. And then we obviously quickly went into our own conversation that wasn't just about things that annoy us.
Yeah. And I do have pre-check, but not clear. So
You did say that too. You were like,
I'm sure I did.
got some points docked for that one.
Very,
but
very proud of my pre-check. It's kind of a game changer.
yeah, ain't nobody got time to take off their shoes and
Nah.
remove their electronics.
Nah, not anymore. So yeah, the conversation started off really well, and I think we continued to go back and forth on Hinge for a couple of days, and then I don't remember which one of us at some point asked, like, do you want to get out of here and take this off Hinge and start?
I think we only Hinge messaged for like one day, and then I was like, I'm cool to text if you're cool. And you were like, thank God.
Yeah, I think she went for the number right away. So I think we were texting back and forth not long, and then at some point I asked her to Marco Polo, which at the time I love Marco Polo. A lot of my friends are out of state, and it was a nice way to communicate with people. Marco Polo is just like a video message if you're not familiar with it. So you record yourself saying something and it immediately sends. So you have like a conversation back and forth of like you're actually talking to the person face to face. So kind of a cool way to communicate. So we immediately started doing that, even though she was a little bit hesitant.
I just don't love, like, I'm not a FaceTiming person. I'm not like, I don't know if, like, why I missed that. Like, I don't know, generation, like, I don't know if I'm just like too old or whatever, but like there's this generation of people that just like will FaceTime, like just while they're like doing their things with like their normal daily routine with their friends. And I'm like, I would literally never do that. I don't like that. I don't like video chatting very much. And so when you asked me that, I was just kind of like, but then, like I said last week, I was also kind of low key scared that I was gonna like not like something about you, and then that was gonna be uncovered.
That you weren't going to like something about me, or
Yeah.
that I wasn't going to like something about you?
No, like that I was gonna not like your voice or something, and then I was gonna get the ick, and or you know, just something. And I just, but then I was also like, well, I guess better now than like on a date or something, like being surprised by it, and then you're in person. So You bullied me into getting Marco Polo. I got Marco Polo, and I think you also just kind of like wanted to make sure that I was who I said I was, and like
100%.
even though,
That was
yeah,
the main reason of
yeah,
wanting to do that.
like our conversation was like excellent, top notch, chef's kiss, but you like wanted to make sure I wasn't like look different than what
Well,
my pictures or
yeah,
anything.
and that you're like actually a real person.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. So we Marco Poloed like morning, afternoon, night, all day
For a few days.
for at least a few days. It felt longer. I would message you on my way to work in the morning. I had like a 30-minute commute. Like message you all the way back and forth. And then throughout the day, like when I got home, I come home and like mow the lawn, which took like 3 hours because I have a push mower on quite a bit of grass. I would Marco you before and after, and like dinner and
Yeah.
before bed. So we did that a lot, and then we agreed like maybe we should meet like in person and see what happens. So I invited you on a date at at Bar Sarah. I think it was a Sunday night.
It was a Sunday, yeah.
It was a Sunday night, yeah. So we met there. It was interesting because it was a first date, but there weren't really like those first date nerves because it felt like I really knew you at that point just because we had communicated so much. I felt like I knew so much about you.
And like not just surface level, like it was really, really impactful and good conversation. Like we both knew exactly what we wanted and what we were looking for. And we were so clear and upfront about that. And that was what was so refreshing. Like I was that way in all of my connections, but not always was the other person like that. And so that would be like an easy, immediate no for me. And with you, I mean, literally from the jump, like not in a pushy, icky kind of way, but just like you were so direct and clear, like this is what I'm looking for, this is what I want, this is what I like want to offer as well, like in the connection and what I'm prepared to offer. And like just never any guesswork, never any like, oh, what are his intentions? Is he looking for something serious or is he just like wanting to date around and be casual? Like we just were both so upfront and like no games, no playing it cool from either of us. Like neither of us were like doing the thing where it's like, oh, I have to wait a certain amount of time to respond or I can't look too eager or whatever. Like we just were very balanced and clear and upfront, and I think that made going into the date feel like, obviously I was still like excited, nervous, like, oh, I'm gonna see him.
Well, yeah,
like I'm gonna feel his energy in person, but not like, oh no, like could this go wrong?
Yeah, that wasn't really a thought in my head. Kind of like you said, like for me, you checked a lot of the boxes of what I was looking for.
I think you mean all.
Yeah, pretty much. There really wasn't any guessing, which was really nice. I tried to be as clear as possible about what I wanted and what I was looking for. It wasn't like a crazy list or anything, but like I wanted a relationship. I wasn't looking for anything really other than that. I knew the kind of person that I wanted. And a big thing in that for me was like, you're very nurturing. And I knew kind of after my previous relationship, who was not very nurturing, I knew that in my next relationship, like I wanted somebody that was very nurturing, very loving, very kind, very sweet. And you were all of those things.
I think like another way to say that is I think your past relationship, which like I don't know her, but from what you have described to me, it sounds like she was just like kind of living her life like very much in her masculine energy, and maybe just also her personality was not as warm, but
Yeah, she was a single mother for 20 years, and so she kind of lived in that masculine, and it was very difficult for her to soften.
yeah.
And with you, you were just soft.
Yeah. I mean, I also have a tendency to go into my masculine, like if when I maybe don't feel safe or like obviously I think that's any woman can do that if the conditions aren't quite right. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just that's just probably also more who I am as
Right,
well.
right. Yeah, so we met at dinner, and she was who she said she was, which was great. Um, she looked beautiful when she walked in. I remember that. I certainly don't remember what you were wearing, but I remember that you look.
Wow.
I remember that you look beautiful,
I was
and
wearing a black dress.
exactly. And we sat there for hours and had great conversation, and
We sat there for like 4 hours.
we sat there for a long
We didn't
time.
sit there for, I mean, we were there for a long time.
Yeah, we sat there for a long time, and then yeah, I mean that was the rest is history, I suppose.
Tell the story. So Cory did something pretty bold on our first date. We were, I don't know, maybe a couple hours in, and he had gotten up to go to the bathroom, and he walked out. And I was just like sitting there. I wasn't on my phone or anything. I was just sitting there, like waiting for him. And walked out of the bathroom, and like we made eye contact. And he just, tell him what you did.
I just went up and kissed her.
He just walked straight over. Like you like rested your hands on like my chair and just like leaned down and kissed me. And I was like, oh, okay.
I mean, it's interesting because it's not. I mean, I haven't been on that many first dates, but it's probably not normal to do that on a first date for me.
Not in my experience.
Yeah, but it didn't feel like a first date. It felt like, I had known this person for a long time, and it just felt like a romantic evening.
Yeah. I mean, it was totally. And it was like I teased him about it because it was just so bold. But I totally was here for it. Like I certainly wasn't feeling like that was the wrong thing to do or like you shouldn't have done that. Like I was definitely there for it.
Yeah, well, that's good.
So,
Glad I didn't scare you off with that one.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I guess, we start dating at that point and spending a lot more time together.
We were together from that point. Like
Yeah.
that there was never any are we going to keep dating or like keep trying to date other people or like looking around. Like I know for me, like I shared in the last episode, I immediately was like off of the dating apps. I was like, this is the person I want to, I wasn't like putting too much pressure of like, this is the person I'm going to marry. But I was like, this is the person I want to focus all my energy on.
Yeah.
Like I stopped all other communications with anyone else immediately and just kind of either let it fizzle out, or I said like, hey, my energy is elsewhere. Like I wish you the best. Great, good luck. But like I've found what I'm looking for at this time. And I think, I mean, from that, yeah, we were just together. Like that's our anniversary. Our first date, that's our anniversary.
Yeah.
And
I mean, for me, I wasn't talking to anybody else, so there was no need to have those kind of conversations. But I think shortly thereafter, deleted Hinge and all the other ones and was like, all right, this is it.
So let's cut to like, I want to say it was maybe like a month after we had been together. You had briefly, like very briefly, in the very, very, very early stages of us talking, like before we went on a date, you did mention the Arizona thing. But it was like so brief, and it was almost, I perceived it as, hey, like there was this opportunity and I did say that I was interested, but like haven't heard anything. So it probably isn't going to even happen. Like that's how I'm not saying that's what you said, but that's how I perceived it. So like I just kind of forgot about it. Like it was gone from my head. And then you, because he lived in Glenpool, I lived literally like 3 minutes down the road from the restaurant that he worked at. So he would often just like stay with me for a few nights out of the week and have like a shorter commute and obviously like time together. And so on this particular day, you came straight to my house from work, and I could tell when you got there, you were already kind of like something was on your mind. And so then you laid the news on me that you had actually officially been offered the position in
Yeah.
Scottsdale, which the restaurant had not opened yet. It was still, I think in construction. And but it was official, like you like just needed to say yes. And
Yeah.
so you like told me that, and from my perspective, I was just like, oh shit. I'm like, oh no, because we were so like happy, and it just made so much sense. And I was just kind of like, oh my God, why would this happen if he's just gonna leave? Like, how could this be what, the universe, God, my soul would have led me to if this is all it's gonna be? And in my head, I'm like, we've only been together for like a month. There's no way I can offer to like be like, can I go with you? Or do you want me to go with you? I'm like, there's just no way. I'm not a psycho. And so, like, I'm kind of shutting down a little bit because I don't want to invite myself, and I'm not quite sure what he's saying to me. Like I'm not sure if he's like, okay, well, I'm going to go and this is the end, or if he's like, do I don't really know what's happening. So, if you want to like briefly touch on what you were thinking and like how you were experiencing that conversation.
Yeah. So I had been offered the position to come out to Scottsdale, and it was mixed emotions. It was, at this point, it had been like a year maybe since I had first heard about Scottsdale, and it was kind of off the radar. And so when I got offered the position, I was like really happy, and at the same time I was like, well, just started, this relationship with Sydney. It hasn't been that long. This is kind of like, I'm confused. Like, what do we do here?
And his house still hadn't sold. So
And my house still hadn't sold.
that
So
was
they're
a
really,
factor as well.
so I'm thinking like, I don't know if I can accept it if my house doesn't sell, because I can't be paying for multiple places when I can hardly afford one.
And let's just like drop the number here. Like this number is insane. He wasn't paying like $2,000 a month. He was paying $4,200 a month in his mortgage. Like that's crazy, especially in Oklahoma. And so like on his own, 100% on his own. And so it was like the idea of doing that and having to find a place in Scottsdale or Phoenix was just off the table.
Yeah, it made it interesting. So I come home, or come to Sydney's after work that day, and it's certainly on my mind, and then I need to bring it up to her. And I start telling her, and while I'm telling her, I'm thinking and I'm feeling like at this point, it's not really like, I guess it could have gone a number of different ways, but I wasn't thinking at all like I'm going to Scottsdale, like this is over. What I was thinking was like, well, you're coming with me or I'm staying here.
But he didn't, this is where you kind of didn't communicate that at first.
Yeah.
And you were just kind of like telling me and then wanting, like waiting for my reaction.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, is he asking me to go, or is he saying he wants to go by himself, or is he saying he doesn't want to go at all? Like, you weren't saying.
Well, so there was a lot of different things that were coming up at the time. Like, I had wanted to get out of Tulsa or out of Oklahoma for so long, and I was so set on California and now Scottsdale. But at the same time, I started thinking, like, I met this special person here, and I started kind of just reflecting on the journey that got me there, and was like, I could have been gone from Oklahoma months ago and would have never have met Sydney, but something kept me here, kept the house from not selling, essentially. That led me to meet her. So this feels like this is something that was meant to be, kind of.
Yeah. And by this time also, something that's so cool, and like I just love this part of our story, is very, very, very shortly after we started dating, you already had started getting bites on your house and like showings. Now, you weren't getting offers yet, I don't think, at this point, but it went from like not having a showing for, like, I want to say like 6 months or so, you had said, to your realtor was showing it like probably once a week for a while.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, it didn't go anywhere for a little bit, but it was just like, holy shit. He literally just had to stay in Oklahoma long enough to like meet me, and then the universe is like, okay, all right, now your house can sell, essentially. So that was cool.
Yeah. So I think I ended up asking you, like, well, do you want to come with me? And I think your response was,
okay, you finished.
I think, in my recollection, your response was, well, I've kind of been wanting to move out of Oklahoma for a while now, and Scottsdale sounds great, Arizona sounds great. This is my recollection of it.
Okay.
And so I think that's kind of what we agreed on, was like, we're gonna do this.
Yeah. So how I remember it very clearly is we were like laying there on my bed, and I'm just kind of like internally like, oh my God, what's going on? And you're kind of not saying, like, you're not giving me the answers that I'm looking for. And so I said, like, I think you may have said, well, how do you feel about that, or how do you think about that, or something? And I just said, I just wish that we had been together longer, so because then it would just be more like obvious that I would go with you, like that would just be a given.
Yeah.
And you said, well, why does that matter? Like, what do you, like, why would that make a difference? Why would that change anything? And I was just like, well, I don't know. It sounds kind of crazy.
That sounds kind of crazy.
It does sound crazy, especially like now. It even sounds crazier now.
Yeah. That
we did that. Like at the time it was a little crazy, but now looking back, I'm like, that's actually wild. And so then that kind of opened more of the conversation of, oh, so like you want to do that? Like you want me to go? And I already for years had been wanting to move out of Oklahoma. And like I just knew, like, I loved Tulsa so much, especially the little like midtown area that I lived in. It was the absolute perfect location and home and everything, community for me for that period of my life. So thankful for it. But I just knew that like somewhere else was in my path. And so that was always something that I wanted, and that everyone knew that I wanted. And like my family knew at some point I would move, my friends knew. And what was so cool to me is I had this was like almost just like a synchronicity or like a foreshadowing. I had so many people like in my life, whether it be people that I had gone on dates with or just met, or people just like that I would meet maybe in a yoga class or something, they would literally say the same thing to me. You just don't seem like you're from here. Or like, you don't seem like you're from Tulsa. You don't seem like you're from Oklahoma. Like, you're just so different. And I was just like, that was just so affirming to me of, yeah, like because I don't belong here anymore. Like I love it so much. And I'm not like, neither one of us are trying to say anything at all negative about Tulsa. It was just like, when you're meant to move on, you're meant to move on. And that's just what it is. And so what was even more like of a synchronicity is I also had never been to Arizona before. And I had told at least two different people that I can remember that I had met like on Hinge or whatever, like when we were talking about just, conversation of, could you ever see yourself living anywhere else, or, anything like that. I told two different people I could see myself in Arizona, which is random because I've never been there. And that just is something like I remember saying that. And so whenever, this all, I was just like, oh my God, like, is this actually how this is unfolding? Like, I just like spoke it into existence by randomly telling a couple people I could see myself living in Arizona. And then like I meet you and you're like, bam, I got a job in freaking Scottsdale. Do you want to go?
Yeah.
And so for me, it was just an immediate yes. Like, I just knew it wasn't even something I needed to sit with. It wasn't something that I needed to like talk to anyone else about to get their opinion or anything like that. It just like, I'm so in tune with like my higher self and my intuition. Like, I just knew that was the next step, the right next step. And yes, it was a risk, but it felt like a very safe and like aligned risk to take, an aligned action. And so from that point on, like once we both kind of finally understood, like, where I stopped being afraid of like feeling like I was inviting myself to go. And then you stopped being afraid, I guess, to just flat out be like, do you want to go? Once we kind of broke that barrier and we're just both like, okay, what do we want? Okay, we want to be together and we want to be together, not necessarily in Tulsa. It was like, all right, well, that's easy. Then we're going.
Yeah, I'm certainly glad that you wanted to go and were willing to go, because I really wasn't looking forward to staying in Tulsa. But if you would have said, my family's here, I really want to stay here, then I probably would have stayed. And, life would look a little bit different than it does now. It would
look a lot different.
Yeah.
Be a lot less hot too, but
well yeah.
Maybe not a lot less.
Different kind of hot.
Yeah.
Different kind of hot. So yeah, we agreed that we were going to move together, and I think we still had maybe 6-7 months before we actually needed to move, and I still needed to sell the house, and obviously, there were a lot of things that we still needed to figure out.
Yeah, at this time, it's like May, I think.
Yeah.
And the restaurant was set to open in November.
Yeah.
Which I think initially we were told that we needed to move in October, which that ended up getting changed, and we moved in September kind of last minute. They like dropped this on us last minute, that they were like, actually, you need to be here a month sooner than what you originally were told. So that was kind of crazy. But by this time, like, you decided, you're going to take the position, we're going to move, but your house still hadn't sold. So let's just go ahead and skip to the part. I don't want this to be like too dragged out. We're already at 45 minutes. Obviously, Cory and I can talk. So, especially me, but the house, the showings of your house were picking up and picking up and picking up.
Yeah. The showings increased. I had dropped the price of the house a couple times. Which I didn't love, but also I needed the house to sell. So I knew I was probably going to end up taking a loss, and I was fine with that. I wanted to be done. I wanted that chapter of my life to just be over. So there were showings, multiple showings a week, and there was just no bites. Like obviously there was interest,
And it
but
was such a beautiful, beautiful home too.
it
Like
was it was my dream home.
dream home material. Yeah,
It, it
100%.
was it was beautiful. I love the area. It was very quiet. You could look up and see the stars, and you didn't have. So in Southern California, it's pretty pricey, and I spent most of my 20s living in apartments. And you hear everything, you feel all the energy of your neighbors on all sides, and it's so loud, and there's helicopters and police
As a
sirens.
helicopter literally just flew over us here
Well, we're in a different area,
in Phoenix. Yeah.
but at in that home in that area, there was just none of that. None of that at all. You could look up and see all the stars, the constellations. You hear all the wildlife. There was a giant field of cows right next door. Like that was my dream. Like I made friends right down the street with this family that had a farm. I had all kinds of animals. I could see it from my house.
Which is like so normal in Oklahoma. So to me, like when he's describing that this was his dream and the thing that he wanted, I'm just like, that's so Oklahoma. Like almost everyone in Oklahoma has that. So,
I mean,
but it was just not what you had. It's not Southern California.
it
That's
was
not.
it was new for me, and the home when I bought it, that same home in California would be 3 or 4 times the price that it was in
At
Oklahoma.
least, yeah.
So,
I mean, I wish that we could have just picked the home up and brought it to Phoenix. But I mean, here in Scottsdale or Phoenix, that home would be like millions of dollars. I mean, anyway, that's beside the point. But so essentially, your house finally sold in the 11th hour. I think it was like a month before we actually moved, because we were getting into the real kind of like nitty gritty of, okay, we're about to have to move and the house still hasn't sold. Like, what are we going to do? Because his job had his job paid for our move, and like it was very cool. We didn't have to pay a lot out of pocket during the whole process, but it was like, okay, well, if it doesn't sell, like, is there some kind of a program like where the job can pay his
yeah,
mortgage, or like what's gonna
it was
happen?
getting to the point where I was going to ask the company, like, can you either pay for us to live in this new place in Arizona, or you can pay my mortgage
You pick one.
in Oklahoma, whichever works better for you. But I mean, I was fully prepared to have that conversation because I knew I wanted to go. We wanted to go. There was just this last thing that needed to happen. So I think it was early August. I got an offer and accepted. Ended up taking a loss, but it was such a bittersweet moment. Like I had been anticipating this house selling for a long time, and it caused me a lot of stress. And so just to be done with it, I was so excited and elated that I was going to be done with that stress. And at the same time, I was sad to leave this home. It was my dream home. It was beautiful.
And it just felt like a really big, I think, accomplishment to you that you were able to do that, to have that. But
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, I mean, buying a home is a huge accomplishment. No matter if it's your dream home or if it's just like your starter home,
Yeah.
it's a huge accomplishment for sure. Yeah, so the house sold literally right before you closed, I think on like August 12th or something
Yeah,
like
it was
that.
the middle of August, and we were set to move out to Arizona, I think in late September or something like
Yeah,
that.
I think we moved in like August or September 22nd, I think was our first day in our townhome here in Phoenix. But yeah, so everything's just really worked out in mysterious ways, as they usually do whenever God or universe, your higher self is involved. And so hopefully you enjoyed us kind of rambling and telling our stories. Is there anything that you want to add before we close this out?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say, kind of reflecting back on the story and kind of like saying it out loud now to each other. Like at the time, it felt divine, I guess is the right word.
Yeah.
And I think now, telling the story back and just kind of like reflecting on how it felt at the time, like it certainly was divine. Like there were, I mean, it sounds crazy to say, but like something brought me to Oklahoma, something kept me there. And you know, it certainly feels like it was to meet Sydney. And yeah, I mean, my time there for the most part wasn't great, but you know,
Some traumatic life experiences,
yeah,
and then meeting.
but it led to something really beautiful, and I'm certainly grateful for that. So thanks, Hinge. And
Hinge, sponsor us, sponsor me.
yeah, we're looking for advertisers.
Oh,
This
man.
segment brought to you by crypto.
Right, crypto spammers and Hinge.
Yeah. So
Oh my gosh.
yeah, certainly glad that it all worked out.
Definitely. Okay, well, I guess we'll wrap it up here. This has been the longest podcast episode so far, and if you're still here, you're a real one. And we would love if you have, like, I listen to so many podcasts that are women, and so I hear so much from the female perspective, which, like, obviously I'm a woman, so that resonates with me. But like, even, you know, talking about like manifesting love, manifesting your partner, and your, like, you know, just female energy stuff. And I'm sure it's out there, but I just don't hear as much from the male perspective. And that's even something that we've talked about before, is there's just so many women doing this work, and which is so amazing. But I love to kind of also show the other perspective, and that was kind of my goal with this episode, is not only just to introduce you to the person that I love and like talk about all the time, you hear his name all the time, but I also just wanted you to get to meet him, and also just kind of share that, like, what was the experience like for you? Like, I think we manifested each other. Like, I for sure did very conscious and intentional things to manifest this relationship, but you also did. And that's like, if you hadn't, then, you know, we wouldn't have lined up on the same frequency and in the same timeline.
No witchcraft was used here, though.
Okay. Wow.
No spells casted.
I didn't do that about you.
Oh yeah.
To be clear, no
Yeah.
witchcraft was used at all to manifest Cory. That was what I did in my wounded desperation, and I wouldn't recommend it. So just to be clear. Anyway, so my point in saying all of that is, if you are listening to this and you're like, yeah, I want to hear more of the masculine perspective as well, or if you just have like relationship questions, or like how, you know, we're certainly not experts, but I think we are really good at a lot of things within the relationship, and we're always trying to be better and to do better and to be the best versions of ourselves, and to have the best and healthiest relationship that we can have. So if there's ever any questions that you like, if you want us to do like a Q&A episode, or just to talk about like a specific topic, I think we would both love to do that and be willing to do that. So you could
Absolutely.
hear from both the female and male perspective. So with that, let's go ahead and close it out. And as always, if you enjoyed this episode or any of my other episodes, please leave me a 5-star written review. Take a screenshot before you submit the review, and then DM it to me on Instagram at intuitively_Sydney. And that will enter you into the monthly giveaway to get a free one-on-one reality recode session with me. And we hope that you enjoyed this episode. I will talk to you next Tuesday.
Aho.
If this episode sparked something in you, share it with a friend who needs it. Take a screenshot, post it to your Instagram story, and tag me at Intuitively Sydney. That's SIDNEY. I would love, love, love to see who's tuning in so I can connect with you and celebrate you. Have an amazing week, and I will talk to you next Tuesday.